how did you land on this? What made you realize that it's this pretty simple idea of the truth is what sells?
So can I go back 1 second? I promise I'll answer your
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah.
When you say I'm insecure,
Yeah.
does that mean you don't believe you're enough?
Yes. I struggle to believe that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for saying that. Imagine if you built your brand off of helping people realize they're enough.
Mm. Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, Alex, what do you think we should name the fucking podcast?
Mhm.
Now I'm a big believer in clarity over creativity. I mean,
Mhm.
it's called the You Are Enough, and it's a podcast that helps artists see that, right? And all of a sudden now it's like, cool, what should our shirts say that we sell?
Mhm.
Black shirts, white text that said what? You are enough. That's right. Why? Do you know why? Because Alex is the only guy that can tell that story because he actually believes it. And the
Yeah.
reason why he's doing these episodes is because he knows that there's a lot of other people out there that also have that same thing going on. And it's bullshit because
Mm.
every person that's listening to this has value, dignity, and worth,
Mm.
and they are enough. And so, in order to remind myself, I'm going to try to remind you, right?
Yeah.
And what just happened is the universe just broke open because you were willing to do the thing nobody else was willing to do, which is say what you're scared of.
Mm.
And then to turn that into something that genuinely helps somebody, I would call that medicine,
Right.
right? With all the bluster and bullshit, like, you know, what so much of what you see in general doesn't require any vulnerability.
Hmm.
It's just children, right? It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
people talking about how fucking great they are. And the whole time they're doing that, you're going, I know you're scared.
Yeah.
And I know, in fact, you look like a fool because all you
Right.
ever do is talk about how great you are and all your accomplishments or whatever.
Mm.
You haven't done anything that cost you something.
Right.
What are you scared of? Right? But man, when people lead like that, if next time you give a speech, Alex, you don't get up and go, hi, my name's Alex. Thank you for having me, blah, blah. You get up there and you look at the audience and you go, fundamentally, I don't believe I'm enough.
Mm.
And every day I'm trying to convince myself and others that I am and you are.
Hmm.
Do you think if you started a speech like that, would you get the room? Yes or no?
Of course.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And so the funny thing is, that's why I start there.
Mm.
I start there because now I go, cool. In the old days, I would have said, Alex, I think I got a hook for your podcast.
Yeah.
I did some research and I'm looking at Google Trends. And I think if you tell people that they're enough, I think we could leverage that
Right.
into a virtue-based virtues. So every brand is built off of status, right?
Yeah.
So what if we built a brand off of the virtue of you are enough? And we made this merch, and then our whole thing is we could have like a fucking song at the beginning about how you're enough, right? And you're going, okay, I think I could see this. I can see this coming together. It's like, then you write a book. It's called You Are Enough, and it's a daily journal for creatives. And then what we could do, see all that fucking bullshit I just made
Oh
up
yeah.
that doesn't mean anything?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden Alex goes, all right, I'll buy that package. And I go, but I got 3 more. Let me show you the other
Right.
ones. This one is not a virtue-based one. This is a success-based one. And this is all about how you can be successful if you work hard. Here's another one. Here's a dominance-based one.
Mm.
This one's built off of like, beat your enemies at a creative level by my 5
Right.
fucking tips or whatever.
Yep.
That's how most people do stuff.
Right.
For me, the real power is going, I sit down with you and you go, all right, Jesse, let's talk about marketing. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm actually more curious in you for a second. Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And all of a sudden you say that, and then you do and then you say, I'm this. And it's like, does that really just mean this?
Mm.
So, okay, you're talking about the negative side. How do we turn that into a positive? Don't define yourself by what you're against. Define yourself by what you're for. And you go, so I guess by the for part would be that you're enough, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's like, okay, how do you feel when you talk about that? I feel a little anxious
Mm.
because it makes me feel like now I have to explain why I feel like that. And I have to explain how that's impacted my work.
Mm.
And I go, cool. What if that's just our first episode? And then what if when you talk to these artists, these very accomplished people, because you have really great people on your show, you go, can I talk about the thing you're most insecure about?
Yeah.
And then people, when they think about your show, they think about that thing.
Mm.
Now, from a marketing perspective, they call that a differentiation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you build a gigantic brand off of overcoming insecurity. And the best part about it, Alex, is that only you could have done that because that was genuinely something you survived. It's a gift that you have to give the world that other people don't have and they can't crystallize it like that. And then all of a sudden it's like, how'd you spend your life?
Hmm.
You're like, yeah, I was successful financially. I was successful in all these things. But what I'm most happy about is I think I helped hundreds of thousands of people realize they were enough. And I
Mhm.
go, that sounds like a pretty good life, man.
Definitely.
And so if you don't come at it from that way, how do you do it?
Yeah.
If I go and talk to a client and they're like, I don't know, Jesse, I need ideas. It's like, I don't know how to do that. I can't work without an armature,
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
right?
Yeah.
I can't work without knowing who you are,
Right.
you know, for two reasons. Number one, I just don't like making shit up like I did a minute ago with like those three pitches or whatever, right? Because that's pure manipulation
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
easy and it's cheap and it's why everything sounds the same.
Right. Yeah.
Like always Coca-Cola is a psychological suggestion.
Hmm.
Think about that outside of the brand. Always Coca-Cola.
Right.
Always Coca-Cola is the fucking
Yeah.
tagline. They're telling you, always buy my always
Right.
buy my shit.
Right.
And nobody they look at it
Yeah.
because the typography is something, hey, always Coca. Dude, imagine if you branded something like that right now and said always IKEA.
Always Jesse Bryan.
Oh, wait, always Kia. Always.
Yes.
That's the most aggressive shit on the planet. Here's how things used to work, okay? It's
Yeah.
like a cake, okay? Where it would be like a business is like a cake where you go, here's the business, it's baked.
Yeah.
Then they'd call in people like me and say, hey, Jesse, put some sprinkles on it.
Mm.
And so we would look at the psychology, the psychographics, because that's the holy grail of understanding human behavior. So you look at it, you go like, oh, I studied your psychographics. And I think that if you said this thing, always Coca-Cola, that sprinkles on top of a baked cake,
Yeah.
that psychological suggestion, if I say it enough times, you will give up your agency, stop thinking, and do what I tell you to
Yep.
do.
Right.
Right? What I believe is about to happen, hopefully, is that whole baked cake thing is going to go away.
Yeah.
And you're starting to realize all this bullshit. And instead, what you're going to have to do is actually have an armature,
Yeah.
right? Is to actually know, no bullshit, everything aside. Who are you?
Right.
Who are these people? What do you stand for? What do you care about? What are you willing to sacrifice for?
Mm.
Whereas now, here's how most brand decisions happen. Do you know how the whole like Jenner Pepsi thing happened?
No,
You know what
I
actually
don't even
happened
know
with that?
Jenner.
Oh, so she did a
Oh,
Pepsi
I remember this.
spot.
People were
Yeah,
bothered.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what happened? So this spot comes out and it's Kendall, right? Is it Kendall? I don't know. I get all
Think
the
so.
Jenners
Yep.
confused, right? Yeah. Okay. So Kendall does this thing where pretty much there's like a activism and she takes a flower, she's drinking a Pepsi and she puts the flower in like a cup or whatever,
Uh-huh.
right here. And it got pulled almost immediately because as soon as it hit the air, people started freaking out and they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Dr. King's daughter said, if only my dad knew about Pepsi,
Oof.
right? And now here's the thing. If you watched it and you go, there's no way, were there no thinking people in the room
Yeah.
that said, we don't get to co-opt the civil rights movement to sell sugar water? The truth was there was no thinking people in the room. You know
Mm.
what was in the room? Data,
Right.
right? So data exists to sharpen your message, it not to dictate it,
Mm. Wow.
right?
Yeah.
If I said, hey, Alex, I looked at the data on the podcast market. I think if you called your show, you were a badass, unstoppable creatives,
Mm-hmm.
you could take X amount of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah, but dude, I don't feel like that. I mean, I actually am trying to work on it. And it's like, who gives a shit, dude?
Yeah.
Just say that and you'll sell shit,
Right.
right? Data is at the top. Instead, if you go, no, man, data, you know what data is for? We put out our podcast and then we tested it and we found out that if we put out the podcast between 8:15 and 8:30, we have a higher conversion, more people listen.
Mm.
It's like, cool, you know what you just figured out? Oh, that's when people are commuting, which means that's how you can be more helpful for them to be able to consume. So data is helping you learn shit
Right.
like that. Oh, we put out an ad and it's all text-based versus a photo. Fantastic. Who gives a
Yep.
shit? Go with the photo. That means you're communicating more clearly to the audience. You're helping them solve problems.
Yep.
Okay. What they did with the Jenner campaign is they looked at it. Number one, everybody thinks millennials are stupid.
Right.
And then they looked at the data and they said, oh, people like Kendall Jenner. So get her. Then they looked at the data and the data said, oh, they're into activism. So what if there's an activism thing? Then they looked at the data and said, also, this demographic specifically likes Bob Marley. So you know who did the fucking soundtrack? Ziggy Marley. And you go, that's how that commercial happened? Yeah. By the way, that's how almost everything fucking happens. It's all bullshit. And the reason it drives you crazy and you feel like it's all bullshit is because it is. And when it feels like bullshit, it's because it is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Whereas that thing we were just talking about, that you just said
Mm,
about insecurity, that doesn't feel like fucking bullshit to me.
yeah.
That feels like something important,
Right.
and it feels like something that you would have said whether you got paid or not, and it actually matters,
Mm,
right?
right.
And I'm here to tell you this, Alex, you could turn that into a huge fucking brand that will do really well for you and your family, and you'll feel great about your work, and you can help a lot of people. You can do it all at the same time. It's just harder.
Yeah.